why going off script in D&D is not always bad. I've been a DM for a couple of months now, and yesterday was the most entertaining game my party has ever had, despite the fact that we went off script, and most of the 4-hour session took place during a single combat encounter. The main plot of my campaign revolves around my players being members of the Resistance, a group of freedom fighters trying to overthrow the brutally oppressive government of Kalkia. Most of the sessions so far have involved the players going on missions on behalf of the Resistance. Secure this weapons cache, free these prisoners, etc. Session 5, last week's session, was going to be the actual start of the war, with the Resistance engaging in its first ever military operation, the taking of a castle. Unfortunately, one of the two lieutenants, a druid named Zinnia, dies under mysterious circumstances right before the operation starts. Torolf, the other lieutenant, tells the party that the leader of the Resistance, Valior, cannot know that Zinnia is dead under any circumstances. They were more than just co-workers, more than friends even. The session concludes with the Resistance winning, but Torolf losing an eye and an arm in the battle. At the start of this week's session, Torolf tells them that Valior wants to talk to them to give them their next mission, but reiterates that they do not tell her about Zinnia. The time will come to break the news, but not now, and not from a group of relative strangers. So the party uses their teleport scroll to pop back into the Resistance's base. They do some role-playing with some NPCs that they know, but eventually make their way to Valior. She fills them in on the next phase of the plan, which is to forge an alliance with the dwarves. And one more thing, she asks. How is Zinnia? I haven't had the time to send to her yet. Was she injured? Torolf didn't say anything. My Furbulk druid player answers. He gives Valior a sort of vague runaround answer with zero concrete details. Valior keeps asking, and he gives pretty much the same answer over and over again. I break character and mutter to myself, oh, that's right, I forgot Furbulks can't lie. He looks at me, also out of character, and says, I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. Whoops. He flat out tells Valior that Zinnia is dead, and pulls no punches in doing so. I didn't expect him to say that. I thought the party would listen to Torolf. I even had a deception DC in mind. But that's fine, I planned for this. Valior's eyes go wide. She loses all sense of calm that she's had every time the players have talked to her up until then. She teleports herself away. I have the druid roll a d20. Unknown to him, Valior just teleported to Torolf's location to get the truth, and Torolf is begging her to calm down and not do anything rash. He rolls a 10, which is 9 less than he needed, but I don't tell him that. The party goes to another officer in the Resistance and asks him what they should do. Valior was supposed to be the one who was going to teleport them to the Dwarven stronghold. He gives them another scroll of teleport but warns them it's the last one the Resistance has. Everyone was relying on Valior not just for leadership, but also logistics, communication, transport, etc. The road is getting a bit rocky, but we haven't gone completely off script yet. The bard accepts the scroll, tells everyone to grab onto her, and rolls a 43. Oh boy, a mishap. The main plot in my campaign involves fighting for the Resistance. However, there are some subplots in the campaign too. Twice my party has bumped into a group called the Church of the Silver Flame. The first time they seemed like a normal church, though the cleric rolled high on religion and realized there was something suspicious about them. The second time the barbarian broke into one of their churches after hours and found out the hard way that they're a front for a fiend-worshipping cult. This is where they teleport to. The party ends up in what appears to be a basement of some kind, each one taking 3 d10 force damage as they do so, and I tell them to roll for initiative immediately. They're all still groggy, but see 3 hooded figures with daggers looming over a man tied down to a table. One looks at the 2 others and says, "Quick, do it now." The party throws cantrips at the cultists, successfully killing one, but they don't do enough damage to stop the other 2 from plunging their daggers into the chained man, and then into themselves. The party hears agonizing screams, along with the smell of rotten flesh and brimstone, as portals open around them, and 8 homebrew demons materialize within 5 feet of the druid, warlock, and cleric. The druid transforms into a cave bear, and swipes at the closest one, but it backs up and snarls. The barbarian hacks away as best as she can, but the demons won't let up. The cleric uses his channel divinity to take a decent-sized chunk out of each one, but they're just as relentless as ever. Meanwhile, one of the fiends at the back of the room is throwing fire magic at them. One by one, the party drops, so they take obscene amounts of fire and slashing damage. Each time a demon fells one of them, it gets stronger and more vicious. Each demon is averaging 40 points of damage per turn, and I'm rolling nat 20s like crazy. They keep making comments and jokes about how they're all going to need to make new characters after this. They had previously heard some NPCs refer to them as the Defiant Five. Now their characters would be called the Replacement Five. But regardless, they're going to give it their best shot. The Bard casts greater invisibility on herself, and force feeds the downed party members potions of healing as fast as she can. The Druid stands up, uses Healing Word on the Cleric and says, "Sorry about this, just smash them," and uses Polymorph to turn him into a giant ape. Slowly but surely, the party recomposes itself. Slowly but surely, the demons get worn down. But the pressure is still on. They're still not sure if they'll make it out of here alive. I can tell that they're thinking tactically and weighing their decisions very carefully. Should we focus our efforts on the ones that have been buffed first, or the ones in the back that are using ranged attacks? Each turn, each action, each spell slot is too precious to waste. They know that if they make one small mistake, they could easily lose and get a TPK. The Bard gives inspiration to the Warlock, while the Cleric, who I'm now calling Harambe, picks up the Barbarian's body and runs away from the demons. The Druid casts invisibility on himself, while the Demon Leader runs up to his last visible location and casts Fireball at his own feet. The Druid was just barely out of range, and I describe how a wave of heat washes over his face and singes the hairs of his beard. Little by little, the demons keep getting worn down while the party moves towards the door. Eventually, there are two left. The Warlock casts Eldritch Blast at one of them. The first one misses, but she uses the inspiration I gave her to give herself advantage and make a hit. She rolls for the second one, and it's a nat 1. But she still has her bardic inspiration. She knows that it's going to need to be an 8 on a d8 in order to hit. Anything else will be too low. Can she do it? And she does. The second to last demon goes down. That leaves the last one, the leader. By this point, Harambe has put the Barbarian back on the ground, and she's moving on her own. Because she's a halfling, she can move through the space of larger creatures and decide to run through the ape's legs to finish off the last demon. One of her attacks is a nat 20, and anticipation builds at the table. The party doesn't know this, but the demon only has 20 or so hit points left at this point. I let the Barbarian add up the damage total anyway, as I put on my best poker face. She gives me the total, and the whole table looks at me expectantly. "Tell us how you kill him." The entire table erupts in a cheer. It was like an episode of Critical Role. 6 sessions with these guys, and I've never seen them as happy as I have now. I make them laugh all the time, but it felt incredible to have them react that way. The Barbarian hacks the last demon to pieces in a spectacular fashion. The session ends after that, and the party tells me that was the most intense, stressful encounter they've ever had, but they loved every minute of it. Mishaps often lead to the most memorable gaming sessions. The fate of the dice can send your party into a badass combat encounter, or derail an entire campaign like it does in the next story. A friend of mine wanted to GM for the first time. He had an elaborate Heroes Unlimited campaign set up. He'd built his whole campaign around an evil crime boss, and the boss is allegedly invincible second in command, essentially the Dragon. If you're not familiar with the term the Dragon, think Darth Vader and Palpatine. I joined in, because it had been a while since I'd had a chance to be on the player's side of the table. The other players had designed super strong guys, so I went with the ancient martial arts master to balance some skill and finesse with their brute force. After the first fight with the basic lackeys went super easy, the GM presents the Dragon. The fight started off as should be expected. The Dragon's nigh invulnerability makes my human strength basic kicks and punches useless against him. My trips and throws, while effective in slowing him down, do no harm, so it seems I'm no use, despite my ability to parry and dodge the Dragon's every attack. Meanwhile, the other characters can't connect a single strike, where they might be able to shave off HP off the guy if they did, and most of the fight they find themselves stunned, prone, or looking silly, as the Dragon dodges them and connects with strikes, and counter-strikes on them with ease. This should have been par for the course. We all lose, we lick our wounds, we plan for another day, but my character had an ability called Death Blow, which ignores most defense powers, and would force a death save to take him to half health. And while humiliating us was acceptable, none of us doing any damage at all felt somehow wrong to me, so I decided to use it. On a 17 or better, my Death Blow activates. The Dragon had a DR 18, so a nat roll of 18 or less, even if it hits due to modifiers, would deal no damage. I rolled a 19. Then the GM rolled a nat 1 on save versus death. The entire campaign revolved around the dragon. He was the biggest threat, and one well-placed death-touch martial arts strike had stopped his heart. Before our eyes, the GM tore up the character sheet and stormed off to the restroom. I think to cry. R.I.P. the Dragonborn. Noon, died 2 p.m., struck down in his prime by a 90-year-old man with 2 fingers, and an ancient prayer. The campaign died with you. How quickly the roll of the dice can turn a villain into an inconsequential bump in the road. These are the best damn moments. A DM can't plan for this. Players can't predict it. That's the beauty of it. We aren't playing a perfectly scripted story. The crazy and unknown are what makes this game great. Embrace the dice gods as they make or break your campaign. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content every Tuesday.